paper that you have today. The question number 1 is describe in detail the treatment of acute ethyl alcohol overdose. And the answer to it is that till now there was no specific antidote available for acute poisoning of ethyl alcohol. Treatment is carried out on the following. First of all, there is a life saving or the supportive treatment, and then the symptomatic treatment, and then elimination of the absorbed poison from the body and removal of the unabsorbed poison from the GIT. The step 1, first of all, the care of respiration is essential because ethyl alcohol is respiratory depressant. The patient is placed in a prone position. Suction of the airway is performed so that there should not be any accumulation of mucus, and the airways should be patent. Endotracheal tube may be inserted. Oxygen inhalation is given. Regurgitation and inhalation of the stomach contents is to be avoided because that may lead to the death of the person acutely or from hypostatic pneumonia. In the symptomatic treatment, because there is hypoglycemia, so we have to give 1 to 2 ampoules of 25% dextrose IV with 100 milligram of thiamine, that is vitamin B1, intravenously to treat the hypoglycemia, and also we have to give sodium bicarbonate solution to treat the metabolic acidosis which may be present. There may be hypothermia present, which is treated by direct. It is treated, but the direct heat should not be applied to the skin of the patient. The patient may be covered in the clothes. If they are wet, they should be removed. The limbs, they may be rubbed with the dry, warm cloth. Then antibiotics may have to be given to prevent the pneumonia, particularly if there is any chance of inhalation and regurgitation. Patient should be catheterized and the urine output should be monitored because alcohol is a diuretic. That's why the bladder may be full and the person may not be able to pass the urine. So catheterization should be done. Urine output should be monitored. If there is any sign of pulmonary or cerebral edema, then diuretics are to be prescribed. Then stomach should be evacuated to remove the alcohol which is still present in the stomach, which has still not been absorbed. Stomach can be washed. The first washing is with plain water and then with sodium chloride, the sodium bicarbonate solution. Animal charcoal should be administered to prevent the further absorption of the alcohol into the body, and saline purgative or whole bowel irrigation may be used so that the amount of alcohol which has passed into the small intestine may be removed. Nowadays, a specific antidote, which is a new antidote to the ethyl alcohol, which is known as 4-methyl pyrazole or anazole, it has been introduced. It acts by blocking the action of the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase, so alcohol remains in its original form. It is not metabolized into the toxic metabolites. There is no acetaldehyde formation present. There is no acetic acid formation present. There is no acidosis. The alcohol which is absorbed into the body, it is removed from the body either through the urine or through the feces or through the respiration or through the perspiration as such. The same antidote is for the methyl alcohol poisoning also. Now the question number 2 is the medical legal aspect and the treatment of the poisoning. Now the medical legal aspects, that it is used as stupefying agents by the robbers, and in children it is used for kidnapping the children. It is mixed with sweets and candies and then the child may be kidnapped. And in the women it may be given to the woman and then she may be raped, and then it is an accidental poison which may be seen in the children or due to quack medication. The treatment is that the stomach should be washed with water or solution of potassium permanganate to remove the seeds from the stomach, because the seeds, they may be present in the stomach, and when we wash the stomach with water, then they may be removed. Physostigmine in a dose of 1 to 4 milligram should be given. It may be repeated at an interval of 1 to 2 hours. And instead of physostigmine, neostigmine can also be given 2.5 milligram intravenously every 3 hours. And then purgative should also be given so that the poison which is still present in the stomach or in the intestine may be removed from the body. Now there is one condition which is very important, and that is hyperthermia. The temperature may be elevated and we have to bring down the temperature by cold sponging. Now the B part of the same question is run amok. Now run amok is a condition of acute insanity which is seen in chronic cannabis addiction. A person who is chronically addicted to cannabis, either in the form of hung or churs or marijuana, so this person may exhibit a condition of acute insanity. So it is seen after intake of cannabis. Now in this condition, the person is suffering from hallucinations. The person may first kill a person or many persons against whom they have entertained a fantasy or a real enmity, and then he goes on killing anybody who comes in his way until the homicidal tendency lasts out. So what is that? There is mania present, there is hyperactivity present, there are delusions present. The person may go on a killing spree. So first killing the near ones against whom they have got some enmity, either actual or feigned, and then anybody who comes in their way, they are going to kill. So multiple mass murder may be present, and sometimes the person may commit suicide himself. Usually the person commits suicide or surrenders to the police after the killing spree. So in this condition, it is a condition of acute insanity because of the presence of hallucinations and delusions. Now the question number 3 is death due to starvation. Now starvation results from the deprivation of regular and constant supply of food or from the administration of unsuitable food. It is acute when the food is suddenly and completely stops. It can be chronic when withdrawal of the food is gradual and prolonged. Symptom of starvation is that in the first 36 to 48 hours after acute starvation, hunger pain relieved by pressure is felt. Intense thirst is present. If the person is deprived of water also, the face becomes pale, mouth is dry and parched, saliva is thick and scanty. After 4 or 5 days of acute starvation, emaciation, that is weight loss, loss of the fat, emaciation, weight loss, disappearance of the subcutaneous fat, and muscle wasting. The muscles, they become wasted, the cheeks, they sink, the face is wrinkled, the skin become baggy, the skin is wrinkled because of the loss of the fat which was present under the skin. Pupils are widely dilated, eyes are sunken and glistening, lips and the tongue, they are dry, breath is foul and offensive, disagreeable odor is coming from the skin, there is no water present, that's why the person is unable to wash himself. The temperature becomes subnormal, the voice becomes weak, cadaveric look is present due to loss of body weight. About 40% loss of ordinary, about 40% of the loss of body weight ordinarily causes death, but the intellect, that is the mental capacities, it remains clear up to the end. In some cases, terminal delirium and convulsions may be present before death. The fatal period in acute case, if both food and water are stopped, is about 10 to 12 days. But it depends upon many other conditions also. The most important being the temperature of the atmosphere. temperature is high, the person is going to die rapidly. If the water only is given with slide, then 2 to 3 months the person may survive. The medical importance is that starvation is usually accidental, but rarely it may be coincidental. A person may be confined at some place and he may be deprived of water and food, and very rarely it may be suicidal in the mentally diseased person or in the political prisoners who go on the hunger strike and they refuse to have any food. Now, in the case of a person who has gone on to the hunger strike, the doctor has got a duty to save the life of such person, and the doctor can feed the person against their wishes. Because to save the life of the patient is the utmost duty. Now, metallization. Metallization here is a phenomenon which is seen in the electric lesions. When there is entry of the electric current into the skin, the entry wound, the electric entry wound, there is deposition of the matter. It is deposition of the conductive matter on the skin, and it is quite characteristic of the electrical injury. It is not seen in any other. The metal fouling which may be present in case of firearm injury is something else. Now, the metallic deposits in case of electrocution were first found in the dermal connective tissue, in the area around the hair roots and the musculature. These rays arise as a result of metal transport across the skin by the electric current. The electric current which is passing through the conductor, it is also taking some particles from that metal into the skin or the subcutaneous tissue or the musculature, where it can be examined, can be visualized by histochemical examination or by the microchemical and other sophisticated methods, and it is a characteristic of the electrocution. Question number 4. A dead body has been brought for autopsy in a suspicious manner. And what specimen will you collect for confirmation of death from ethanol poisoning to be sent to the toxicology lab of Punjab Forensic Science Agency? Also write about the quantity and the preservation of each of these. Now, the specimens which are required to confirm the death from ethyl alcohol poisoning. Now, as the government has provided us, the doctors, with a laboratory, so when we say that the death has occurred due to any chemical, any poison, our report should be strengthened by the report of the toxicological section of the Punjab Forensic Science Agency laboratory, and they demand that the specimen, if it is a case of suspected death from ethyl alcohol poisoning, these specimens are first of all blood from the heart, which may be 30 to 50 mils, and 1% sodium fluoride as a preservative. So, sodium fluoride is a preservative and oxalate is an anticoagulant here. And blood from the periphery, which is generally from the finger. Blood from the periphery, which is generally from the femoral vein, that should also be in the amount of 30 to 50 ml with 1% sodium fluoride as the preservative and oxalate, 10% oxalate as the anticoagulant. The blood should be fluid when it reaches the laboratory. Then stomach contents with all available. It is not the stomach or the stomach wall, it is the contents of the stomach, and no preservative is to be added to them. Whatever is the amount of contents, all of them, all of these should be taken, and no preservative should be added to it. Urine, which is all available, and no preservative should be added to it. Now, if the urine is more than 120 mils, then we may take up to 120 mils, but then the amount is less than that. Then CSF all available. Generally, we can collect 10 to 15 cc of CSF, and no preservative is to be used for the preservation of CSF. And in some cases, vitreous humor can also be taken through a syringe, and the amount of vitreous humor from one eye is about 1 to 2 cc, and no preservative is to be added related to the vitreous humor. In case when these specimens are not available, then we can have instead the tissue from the liver, which is about 100 grams, and brain also, generally the cerebral hemisphere, 100 grams, and both these organs or tissues should be taken in the saturated saline solution. Saturated saline solution is a solution of sodium chloride, which is about 33%, and the amount of, if we are taking 100 grams of liver or brain, then the saline should be about 300. अब मैं repeat करूं या रहने दूं? So this was a list of specimens which is required to confirm the death from ethyl alcohol poisoning and their respective preservatives and the amount which is required. This is different from the text which is given in your books, because those books, they are old and they do not cater to the requirement of Punjab Forensic Science Agency laboratory. And in the laboratory, generally the methodology which is followed, it is gas chromatography and mass spectrometry. So again, because you people had some difficulty, so I will just be repeating very rapidly. The specimens are, most of them, they are body fluids, blood from the heart, blood from the periphery, both 30 to 50 cc with 1% sodium fluoride as preservative and 10% oxalate as the anticoagulant. Stomach contents all available, no preservative used. Urine all available, no preservative used. CSF all available, which may be up to 10 to 15 cc, no preservative used. CSF can be obtained from the dead body up to 24 hours after death. Then vitreous humor about 1 to 2 cc, and no preservative is to be used. In case these specimens of body fluid are not available, we can take either liver 100 grams or brain 100 gram or both of them in the same quantity, and we are to preserve them in saturated saline solution. The saturated saline solution is a solution of sodium chloride, which is about 33%. And if we are placing the tissue, which is about 100 grams, then the solution should be about 300 to 350 cc. For each, liver should be placed in a separate container and brain should be placed in a separate container. This was the SCQ and the answers of SCQ. And now we are going to have our repeat lecture of personal identity. ये बात सुनिए, आगे पेज अब किधर से होगा? Now, there are many characteristics through which we can identify the person. Some of them are shown, like here the bony examination, the dental examination. You can see extensive dental work which has been performed on the teeth, and many points of comparisons, they are being marked. Now, personal identity is the establishment of individuality of a person. That person may be living or may be dead. It may be the victim or the accused. Identification means knowing the exact position an individual was occupying in the society, meaning who he was. ये कौन था, किसका बाप था, किसका बेटा था, किसका खावन था, किसकी बीवी थी, कहाँ रहता था. So the personal identification may be complete when all the information about a person may be obtained. It may be partial when some information only is obtained, like the remains which we have got. These are that of a human being, and that person was a male or a female, and the age was probably 30 years, and the stature was about 5 feet and 8 inches. So these are partial informations. In day-to-day life, the human minds work as a computer. We see a person, we look at a person, and many information about the appearance of that person, they are stored in our brain. So our mind works as a computer storing information about the identity of an individual. When the same individual is seen again, through the process of recall and comparison, the identification is established. It is not only the visual, it may be auditory. That is, if we hear to the voice of a person, we can identify a person also. In rare condition, it may be through the smell. For legal and administrative purposes, identification may be required. For example, in the bank, we go to the bank and the bank people, they require the identification. In the university, you are taking an admission or you are appearing at an examination, so identification is required. Identification of a criminal, identification of a lost person. In all, there are many other situations also. In all these situations, identity is established through various scientific procedures. A few example, the procedures, few example of the procedure is paper identification, which is computerized national identity card, facial photograph, signature, and thumb impression. So these are the national identity cards, which is a method of identification in Pakistan for every person. There are many informations present on this small card, and also many informations are stored with the authorities, and the person can be identified through this card. Then there is another identification paper which is known as a passport. Here there is an identification through the affixation of the thumb impression, that is dactylography. You can see here it is another identification paper which is known as driving license, and the fingerprint is present on it. It also may have the blood group. The passport, the driving license. Ordinarily, the identification of known person is routine and easy. So we can identify a known person. It is not very difficult. There are so many people who can identify that person in our presence. Difficulty arises in the cases where, such as road traffic accidents, where there are mass casualties present. The people, they are either dead or they are unconscious. They cannot tell about their name or their addresses. Absconding soldiers, the soldiers who have run away from their duty, and they may be telling you the wrong informations. Mixed up babies in the maternity ward, lost memory patients, that is quite common in our society. The people who are old and who have lost their memory, they may just wander around from their house, they're not knowing where they are, who they are, and where do they live. Then the criminals also, because we do not want that an innocent person should be punished. Rarely in cases of impersonation and mass disaster, identification may be difficult. Now, there is an example of the air crash, still one dead body is present, which has not been identified, and the authorities, they have utilized various means of identification, that is visual identification, paper identification, DNA identification, and dental identification. For legal purpose, every case should be dealt with carefully on its merit. We do not want that there should be wrong identification or mistaken identity. Expert opinion of other doctors, such as the dental surgeons, radiologists, general surgeons, because dental surgeons, they may have got dental work performed on the dentures, and they may be able to identify. Radiologists, they may have got the x-rays taken during their life, and the same parts of the body may be x-rayed again, and both ante-mortem and post-mortem x-rays may be compared. General surgeons, they may be able to say that they have carried out a specific operation upon such person, like appendectomy or episiotomy or C-section or coronary bypass, anything. Gynecologist and obstetrician, ENT specialist, dermatologist, these may be required. Now, certain characteristics are present in every individual which are helpful in establishing the identification. Now, these characteristics which are present in the person, these are known as parameters of identification, and generally they are about 33, 35, or even more than that. So these characteristics, these can be classified into physiological characteristics, anatomical characteristics, pathological characteristics, and inherited characteristics. Many of the inherited are also anatomical. The physiological characteristics are present in the living individual only. When the person dies, these are abolished. The anatomical and pathological characteristics can be observed in the living as well as in the dead. The physiological characteristics are handwriting and signature. Now, handwriting experts, they can identify a person through the handwriting. The signature expert, particularly the bank officers, they can identify a person through the signature. Then the gait, if you see a person walking, even at some distance, you can identify that person from the gait. There are certain characters who are known by the gait, like Charlie Chaplin. Then there is voice. Every person has got a different voice, and many people, they can be identified through their voices. Then the language and the accent. Now, a person may be talking in English. You can, if you listen carefully, you can identify whether that person belongs to Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, or West Indies. So each person has got a different language and a different accent. Like if somebody is talking in front of you, you can assess that this person is a Pathan or a Punjabi or Sindhi or Urdu speaking. Then education and intelligence, a person may be educated and a person may be uneducated. Both of them, they can be told apart. Then the handedness, most of the people, they are right-handed, but some of them, they are left-handed people also. So we can, if we know that the missing person was left-handed and we find a person who is left-handed, we may say that he may be the same person. Similarly, mannerism, some particular manner which may be present, which is obvious if you observe the person for some time. So something, it becomes obvious. It is known as mannerism. Some particular habit, that also may be helpful in the identification of the person. Now the anatomical characteristics are age. Every person has got a particular age, but age is not a constant parameter. It is changing. A person is born, before that there is intrauterine age, then after that it is the actual age, and the baby may be neonate, maybe an infant, maybe a toddler, then school going, then prepubertal, then pubertal, then young, then middle aged, then old. So age is an anatomical characteristic. Sex is also an anatomical characteristic. A person is born with a particular sex. Then stature also is an anatomical characteristic. Race, the complexion, facial features, color of the hair, color of the eyes, all these things are anatomical. The blood groups, they are also, we can say they are anatomical as well as they are inherited. The teeth, they are anatomical characteristics. The fingerprints, they are also anatomical. The pathological characteristics, these may be certain deformities which are present in the body. These may be congenital or these may be acquired. The baby may be born with a congenital deformity. This deformity may be of the skeleton, it may be of the blood. So there may be congenital syphilis present, there may be thalassemia present, there may be sickle cell anemia present, there may be hemophilia present. So these are the congenital abnormalities, and there may be acquired deformities present like polio, that is an acquired after birth. There may be certain diseases which cause a particular characteristic, like the diseases of the bone. A person may be suffering from osteomyelitis or poliomyelitis, then the person may become lame, or there may be malunited fractures, so there may be some deformity present. Disease of the blood may be present, like hemophilia. There may be scars present, and the scars may be helpful in identification of the person. There are various types of scar, like अब तो वो नहीं होते scars of smallpox, scars of surgical incisions, scar of certain injuries. Then there are tattoos present, which are color design, which are made after the birth, and these tattoos are very helpful in identification of the person. Amputation. If we know that the person has got an amputation of the left hand, हमारी सोसाइटी में कहते हैं टुंडा है और लंगड़ा है, amputation of the lower limb. So these things, they are permanent characteristics through which person can be identified. Then the evidence of medical, dental or surgical treatment which may be present on the body. There may be some prosthetic presence of foreign bodies in the body, like bullets may be present, pellets may be present, prosthetic like dentures may be present, like the artificial limbs may be present, or the artificial joints may be present, or there may be nails and plates or wires present which have been used to unite the broken ends of the bone. So these are the presence of foreign bodies which are very helpful in identification. Now, identification is carried out by utilizing a single character. Sometimes we use only a single character, but most of the time there is a combination of various parameters of identification simultaneously. Like on the paper identification or in the identification card, there are many characteristics which are being used. Now, the methods of identification, there are various methods of identification which are employed in various situations. Now, this is not given in your books, so please pay attention. Now, one method of identification is handwriting and signature. It is a method used in holding the bank accounts. You go to the bank and they ask you to give your name in your own handwriting and your signature, because later they are going to compare your signature on the check with the signature which they have got as a record, and they are going to identify through handwriting and signature. Photography of the face or other parts of the body like the pin of the ear is used at the airports. Printing of various parts of the body like the fingerprints, footprints, lip prints are also utilized. Some method of identification, they are easy, cheap and infallible. That is, there is no false positive or false negative. Like fingerprints. A list of commonly utilized methods. These are dactylography or fingerprinting, because it is simple, it is cheap, and no false negative or false positive results have ever been obtained from the examination of the fingerprints. Facial photography also is very important, but there is a difference in the facial anatomy due to many reasons. Even then, photograph is quite a reliable method of identification. Anthropometry, that is measurement of the various parts of the body, that used to be a method of identification. It is nowadays being used very, I would say, in just a few situations, and along with other characteristics like photography, fingerprinting. Both of these are present along with anthropometry. Blood grouping, we can know the ABO blood group, the Rh blood group and also the other blood groups, if we have got anti-sera available to them, and the blood grouping, the information about blood group is given on the driving license also. DNA fingerprinting, which is a new method of identification, and it is very, very, very important. It can identify a living person, it can identify a dead body, even when there are no fingerprints present. It can identify a person when there is no previous record of DNA present. It can identify a person with the comparison of DNA pattern with the father, mother, brother or sisters, but fingerprinting cannot be identified with the fingerprints of the father or the mother or sister or brothers. Radiological examination is also very, very important, and it is a permanent record. You take an x-ray and it is something permanent. It is accepted by the court also. You have got x-ray of a part of the body during the life, and you take, if you find a person with lost memory or you find a dead body, you take the x-ray of the same area and you compare the antemortem and the post-mortem x-ray, and if both of them, they are comparable, we can say that both of these x-rays, they have come from the same person. Audiometric identification, we can identify the sound or the voice of the person. Many a times there are audio cassettes present or audio messages which are being released, and then they are scientifically analyzed, and then the report is given that the voice is of the same person or it is the voice of somebody else. This is particularly in the case of declared terrorists. Then there is another method which is scanning of the retinal blood vessels. Now this is comparable to fingerprint. The retinal blood vessels have got a unique pattern for each individual. Plus there is one thing that these cannot be tampered with. The fingerprints, because they are peripheral, people try to tamper their fingerprints, but retinal blood vessels cannot be reached. Paper identification, which is the national identity card, the passport, the driving license, or other identification papers, these are a reliable and simple method of identification. That is, certain informations are provided which are kept in the record, and a card is prepared and it is given to the person to keep, and then through that paper identification can be had very easily. This is the radiological examination, and you can see that there are many x-rays. It is not the x-ray of the same person, and it is telling us about the development of the bones, ossification of the bone, and completion of the ossification of the bones. You can see that the bones, the ends of the bone, they are still cartilaginous in the X-ray A. In the X-ray B, the ossification has progressed. In the X-ray C, it has further progressed. In the D, it is complete. And in the E, there are degenerative changes. Particularly, you can see in the ulna. It is very obvious there are spurs formation, so degenerative changes may be present. So this is serial X-ray, you can say, of person from smaller age to the middle age or old age. So this is a method of identification. We can identify and we can have many information about the person, like age, sex, race, stature, diseases, foreign bodies, any injury which is present, any treatment which may have been present. Almost the same thing. So in the first, it is written that it is a hand of a baby, 5 weeks. Second is 2 years. Third is 9 years and 9 months. Then there is 9 months achondroplasia. There is a disease present. Disease present. And pseudoachondroplasia, there is another disease present, and dystosis. So these are various diseases also which can be identified from the X-ray. A male hand of a male who is 6 months of age, you can see only 2 carpal bones are present, caput and hamate. After 6 years, these are here. There are 5, but there should be 6. Approximately 5 to 6 carpal bones are present. Male 8. All the 8 bones are present in the carpus. Size has also increased. The ossification has also progressed. Now the identification of the dead body, this is given in your book, and the students, they are much confused about it. Much confused about it. So the identification of the dead body may be carried out by one of these 3 methods, depending upon the circumstances of the case. The third party method, the subjective method, and the objective method. The third party method is the most commonly used method for the identification of known dead body. गलती से यहाँ unknown लिखा है, लेकिन ये known dead body है. Suppose you are performing a postmortem examination and a known dead body has been brought for examination. So here 2 parties are involved, the examinee, that is the dead body, and the examiner, which is the medical officer, a relative or a friend. Accompanying the examinee, that is the dead body, is the third party who verifies the identification of the examinee before the medical examiner. So the name of that identifier is computerized national identity card number, and the relationship with the examinee is entered in the medical certificate. It may be the medico-legal certificate of the living person, or it may be the post-mortem certificate of the dead body. So this is the third party, that is a person or a dead body which is known, is brought for examination before the doctor. There is somebody present with the person or the dead body who is going to identify that examinee in your presence. You are going to write the name, the ID card number, and the relationship of that person with the examinee in the medical certificate. This is known as the third party method of identification. The subjective identification, this method of identification is applicable when the dead body is unknown, and that's for the third party is not present. So nobody knows the dead body and nobody is there to identify it in your presence. So no third party identification is possible. Here the medical examiner then notes the morphological data. So here there are only 2 parties present, the dead body and the doctor. So the doctor is going to note the data himself. In this, the physical characteristics of the body, the person may be male or female, his or her belongings, clothes, wristwatch, spectacles, cap, shoes, jewelry, etc. These are recorded. Facial features, height, weight, fingerprints, facial photographs. These are taken and noted. In fresh case, this information is extensible. There are many things you can write. In the old dead body, old से मुराद ये नहीं कि बंदा old है. In the old, मतलब the person who has died since a long time, mutilated or fragmentary remains, this information is limited. If the body is not complete or if the body is mutilated, then information is limited only. So subjective is when we have got the body or the part of the body and we note the data about that body, like the sex, apparent age, the height, the weight, the color of the skin, color of the hair, color of the eyes, the number of the teeth, whether mustaches are present or not, whether beard is present or not, even whether the penis is circumcised or not, any denture which is present in the mouth, anything which is present in the clothes or in the pockets. So all these things are known as subjective method of identification. Now ये कहाँ से गलत आ गया है, ये गलत तस्वीर आ गई इसमें। नो क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ पैरामीटर्स ये हमने पहले कर लिया है। एनाटॉमिकल पैरामीटर्स, उसमें क्या है, शेप ऑफ द बॉडी, डिजाइन ऑफ वेरियस कंपोनेंट पार्ट्स। There are further divided into primary, which are present in the time of birth, like the facial features, and secondary, which develop and appear subsequently, like the secondary sex characteristic, and degenerative changes like the cataract formation. Pathological parameters like eczema, their remnant scars, calcified fibroid, genetic parameters like blood groups, DNA morphology or profiling. Now, objective methods. The objective methods is the morphological data and information about the belonging of the subject is analyzed by the investigating agency to isolate and individualize specific identity, clue, and characteristics which may help in establishing the personal identity. Like, we do not have the dead body, but we have got a wristwatch, we have got a clothes, we have got a shoe, we have got a pen. So these things, they are examined, and the information is publicized in the press, radio, television. Detailed description of the subject. Here the subject is not the dead body. His clothes, facial photograph, or the sketch. This method may be useful in the cases of decomposed or mutilated remains. So it may be any object. It may be a cloth present, it may be a wristwatch present, it may be a shoe present, it may be a limb present, it may be a bone present. So we have to really examine that, and we have to have the information from the examination of that object. Biological and non-biological material can be investigated. Biological material includes the hair, nails, bones, various tissues. Blood grouping, DNA profiling can be performed on these. Now, if we have got hair present, if we have got nail present, or the bone or tissues present, then we can perform the DNA profiling. We can also have the blood grouping done. Non-biological materials like tailoring marks, laundering on the cloth, they are examined. And these may be shown to various laundrymen or tailors, and they can identify कि ये कपड़े हमने फलां मिनिस्टर को बना के दिए थे. If biological strains or traces are present on these clothes, these can be extremely valuable in identification through DNA examination. Now, suppose if the person was wearing a cloth, or there is a handkerchief present, and the face may have been wiped with that handkerchief, so cells may be adhering to that handkerchief, and DNA examination can be performed. There is another thing which is known as trace evidence. Here the trace has got two meanings. One is very small amount, trace amounts. So something which is present in a very small amount. And the other meaning is that it is a clue which can take you or trace you up to the individual. Trace evidence is the material left on the scene or on the body of a victim or the assailant or on the clothes. It can act as a telltale, यानी वो आपको किस्सा सुना देता है. Helps in identification of the source from where it has originated. This evidence, trace evidence, may be a stain of the body fluid such as saliva, blood, semen, some other material like a fiber of a carpet, clothing, hair, smoke, cigarette, grit, paint or glass piece or mark such as teeth mark or fingerprints or shoe prints. So suppose if we have got a salivary stain, we can do DNA examination. Blood, we can perform blood examination. Seminal stain, again seminal examination and DNA. If a fiber from the carpet or clothing is present, we can compare it with the suspect carpet or cloth. If a hair present, again that can be submitted for DNA examination. Smoked cigarette, the butt of the cigarette may contain saliva, which may be subjected to DNA examination. If there is grit, paint or glass piece present on the cloth or on the body, we can have information about the car. It may be hit and run accident, or we can have some information about the offending vehicle. Teeth marks are present, so we can compare that mark with the denture of the person, and also because the bite mark or teeth marks are always stained with saliva, we can also have saliva from that, and we can perform the DNA examination. Fingerprint is present, we can do the fingerprint comparison. Shoe print is present, we can examine for the presence of the particular type of shoe with the assailant or with the victim. Trace evidence may belong to biological group where its origin is from the human being or from the animals. Body fluids and tissues such as hair, nails, blood, saliva, semen, CSF, urine, vomit, stomach contents, and excreta. These fluids are found in the form of stains at the scenes, on the clothes, on the skin, on the body orifice such as the urethra, vagina, rectum of the victim or the assailant. You can imagine the case of sexual assault. Human hair from the head, from the eyebrow, from the eyelashes, from the pubic and axillary area. The skin scraping from under the surface of the nails containing the skin of the victim or the assailant, which is deposited during physical or sexual assault. Similarly, animal hair may also be found. The trace evidence can be of non-biological origin when it is from the non-biological belonging from a person or the environment. It may be in the form of item of personal use such as clothes, spectacles, यानी कपड़े हो सकते हैं, ऐनक हो सकती है, wristwatch, purse or any other thing in the pockets. Environmental material like wool from the carpet, vegetation from the garden, pieces of leaf or grass or seeds or their stain of their sap and grit particles from the road. All of these are trace evidence but non-biological. There may be certain things like bottles, tablets, bullets, pallets, weapon of offense, or any other thing used concerning the crime. So Edmund Locard introduced the concept of use of this trace evidence as a mean of personal identification on scientific lines. Locard exchange principle is named after Edmund Locard, and it says every contact leaves a trace, and exchange of trace is often a two-way process. Like suppose if a person is raping a girl, so semen from the man will be present on the body of the victim. Similarly, some biological material from the body of the victim will be present on the body of the assailant. So the exchange of the trace is a two-way process. If a person has been hit by a vehicle, so the glass or paint or rust may be deposited onto the clothes or the body of the victim, and similarly the hair, tissue or blood from the victim may be present on the vehicle. So it is a two-way process. In case of sexual offense, transfer of biological materials such as semen and blood occurs both from the assailant and victim to each other and also to the scene. So there may be seminal stains present on the scene, there may be blood present on the scene. So non-biological material from the scene to both assailant and victim, like in case of road traffic accidents. Now, there are various methods of identification, and the top of the list is dactylography. This is a method. Fingerprint is a characteristic or parameter, and the method which is based upon this characteristic is known as dactylography. Fingerprinting or dactylography is the surest method of personal identification, both in the living and dead. It has been used in the past by the Chinese, who used thumbprint as identification marks on seal many hundred years ago. It was also practiced in India, where thumb impression was marked instead of the signature. So अभी भी जिनको अपने सिग्नेचर नहीं करना आता, जो लोग लिखे पढ़े नहीं है, वो अपना अंगूठा लगाते हैं. In 1823 चेकोस्लोवाकियन, अब वैसे चेकोस्लोवाकियन ही है, चेक अलग हो गया और स्लोवाक अलग हो गया. So Czechoslovakian physiologist Mr. Perkinji observed natural grooves on the human fingertips and gave their first classification. In 1885, Henry Faulds, a Scottish physician, recognized the importance of the skin ridges and present method of taking fingertips impression was devised by him, and he advocated the possibility of using these impressions in criminal investigations. In 1892, Francis Galton produced proper scientific work on the subject, and this work was later improved by Edward Henry. So Galton's method इसी के नाम के ऊपर है, dactylography और Galton's method. A fingerprint expert can identify any person from his fingerprints if the authentic record of the fingerprints of that person is already available for comparison. एक आदमी का फिंगरप्रिंट मौजूद है, जैसे नादरा के पास मौजूद है. अब अगर किसी कोई और फिंगरप्रिंट मिलता है तो एक्सपर्ट उस चांस फिंगरप्रिंट को जो उसके पास रिकॉर्ड में नॉन फिंगरप्रिंट है उसके साथ कंपेयर करके तो बता सकता है कि ये उसी आदमी का फिंगरप्रिंट है. For this we have to have the fingerprint in record. अगर हमारे पास fingerprint नॉन फिंगरप्रिंट इन रिकॉर्ड में ना हो तो हम आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर सकते. Fingerprints may be present, say, on a bottle, on a weapon, on the steering, on the glass, on the door handle, on the telephone. It may be present anywhere. The working principle of this method is that there are present ridges on the skin of the palmar aspect of the hands. These ridges are present in the dermis, and they are also present in the epidermis, but their origin is in the dermis. These ridges form patterns that are individual specific. The pattern is present. One pattern which is present in one individual is not repeated in another person. These ridges can be arranged in the following patterns: arch or tented arch. It is more like an inverted V. Loop or twisted loop, which is like something inverted U. So it may be a simple loop or it may be a twisted loop. And generally the loops are very common. Pattern of loop is very common, and generally the open side of the loop is towards the ulna. Ulnar loop or the radial loop, most of the people they have got ulnar loops. Whirl जो एक गोल की शक्ल में या there are concentric circles present, and composite where two or more than two of these patterns are present. Suppose if there is a whirl present, so there may be two arches present. If there is double loop present, there may be an arch also present. So these become composite. Accuracy of this method is because the specificity of the pattern of the ridges on the fingertip. An expert studies and compares these characteristics. There are about 150 individual ridge characteristics on an average fingerprint. These remain constant from the birth till death. They are not destroyed by desquamation of the surface epithelium or abrasive action of the sandpaper. अगर हम अपनी उंगलियों को किसी चीज के साथ रगड़ें या सैंडपेपर से उसको रगड़ें तो ये ज़ाया नहीं होते. No two fingerprints have exactly the same arrangement, not even in the monozygotic twins. Monozygotic twins जो एक ही fertilized ovum से बने उनमें सब चीजें एक होती हैं. उनका डीएनए भी एक होता है, उनका ब्लड ग्रुप भी एक होता है, उनके फीचर्स भी एक होते हैं, उनका कम्प्लेक्शन, उनकी एज, उनकी सेक्स, उनकी हाइट, उनका स्टेचर सब एक होता है, लेकिन फिंगरप्रिंट्स अलग होते हैं. Dactylography is being used universally alone. It is a single parameter which can be used, and also in combination with other methods like on the paper identification or with the anthropometry. It is simple, it is easy and sure method of identification. It is also quite cheap. No sophisticated apparatus is required when we compare it with DNA examination. This method can be used in the living subject as well as in the dead body. As long as the tips of the finger, the epidermis or dermis is available in the dead body, we can have the fingerprints. No specific equipment is required. This method is used in the computerized national identity card and also for biometric system in various situations. अभी हमारे कॉलेज में भी बायोमेट्रिक अटेंडेंस जो लगाई जाती है, अच्छा बस ये खत्म करो, तो बायोमेट्रिक अटेंडेंस जो लगाई जाती है वो फिंगरप्रिंटिंग से ही लगाते थे. And if 16 points match between two fingerprints, it is admissible in the court as an evidence that both these prints have come from the same fingers. वैसे तो एक प्रिंट में तकरीबन 150 होते हैं, 150 कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होते हैं, लेकिन कोर्ट कहती है कि अगर 16 मैच आप हमें दिखा दें तो वी विल बी सेटिस्फाइड कि ये एक ही फिंगर का है, या जिसका आपके पास रिकॉर्ड है नॉन, या उसी ने उसका ही दूसरी दफा है। ये मुझे बता दें कि कितने हो गए। इंशाल्लाह वी विल कंटिन्यू नेक्स्ट टाइम।